we group products together. So here, we will look at both the individual products themselves, and we'll try to gain an understanding of what consumer segment is going after this type of product. So you can see in this example right here, which is Wendy's, a fast food chain, that they have both a primary market and a secondary market for their products. So the people who are falling into either of those categories. And then they have different products, and they have rated based on sort of a segmentation, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if it's a primary group purchasing here or a secondary that could be purchasing. But first, we want to examine those individual products that are for offer by the firm and both the primary and secondary markets for these products. And then we can group them together into some form of meaningful category. So if we look again at this Wendy's example, I just walked you through sort of the individual products and how we can assign them to a primary or secondary market. We can also think about how we would group the products together themselves. So a common way to do this in the food industry would be, and this would work in this example, is we could take all of the sandwich products, so your hot and juicy hamburger, your super value meals, which are showing a hamburger because it includes a hamburger, your breakfast sandwiches, and you could group all of these together because in this case, we're seeing that they're all the same type of food, right? You could do this with salads as well. Group all of your salads together. So here you see salad sensations. They've already grouped your salads together. And then another way to consider this for food could be by the eating occasion. So putting together breakfast foods, so breakfast sandwiches technically here would be together, versus lunch versus dinner items. So there's different ways that you can group the foods together, and it'll depend on the product and what's most appropriate for what is in your portfolio. Then in step 3, we're going to formulate a market product grid. So here, this creates a framework to relate market segments of potential buyers to the products that are offered or the potential marketing actions that will be taken. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. We can use segmenting to relate our market segments of potential buyers to the products that are being offered. So up until this point, we started off with, we were going to group consumers together. So we grouped consumers together here into what we call market segments. So we've got people who sleep on their side, people who sleep on their back, and people who sleep on their stomach. We can easily put consumers into one of these groups with that information. Then we talked about in step 2 that we group products together. So here we're looking at pillows for your bed. We can group together firm pillows, we can group together medium pillows, and we can group together soft pillows. So now what we're doing is we're bringing those two things together. We're bringing our market segments together and our product segments together here. And we're seeing the potential market size if we were to select a single segment in here. So it has different market segments in the horizontal rows and different product offerings in the vertical columns. Now, if we look at this particular market grid, it tells us that there are 3 key market segments of sleepers: side sleepers, back sleepers, and stomach sleepers. And research tells us that finding the best pillow firmness will result in a better night's sleep, so then we group our products based on the firmness of the pillow. Now, through market research, you would reveal the potential size of each sleeper segment. That is what this circle is telling us. The size of the circle tells us the size of the sleeper segment. And this grid reveals the size of the segment for each of these products in the market segment that it's corresponding to. Now, each of the 3 market segments, knowing this information about these 3 segments, can give us information about production scheduling that we should do. And we can see in this particular case that firm pillows should be targeted towards side sleeper, and this segment is 3 times larger than the other segments, okay? So if we bring these together, this segment is 3 times the size. So ultimately in this step 3, we're bringing together information about the market, the way consumers have been segmented, and the way products have been segmented, and then doing research to understand the potential of different segments within our grid. So if we come back to, let's say, that Wendy's example I was giving you, in this case, we can see we have market segments. So we grouped the consumers into students versus non-students. And then we segmented further. So now we have students who live in dormitories on campus, students who live in apartments, and then students who are day commuters or night commuters. So this is our segmentation of consumers, our market segments. And then we look at how our products are grouped together. So here, remember I told you a really easy way to segment food products is based on the eating occasion. So we have grouped the food products based on breakfast, lunch, snacks, dinner, and then after dinner snacks. And then through market research, they've gained information about the potential size of each of those markets, where you can see down at the bottom here that a 3 means that there's a large market, 2 is a medium market, 1 is a small market, and 0 is that there's no market. And then for each of these market segments and product segments, we go in and we put in the size of that potential segment. Now, when we look at this, we can then determine which segments have the most potential, right? So we can see that if we look at the student versus non-student, student group has more potential, and we can see that these 4 sort of groupings with students is where we see the most potential, and then we can narrow down even further to see where the largest potential segments are. Okay, so when we are talking about segmentation, we of course think of how can we group consumers together based on similarities in their needs and wants, as well as how they will respond to marketing actions. And then we team that up with grouping or segmenting products together as well. And we pull both of those together to see where there's the most potential for a product segment.